This is one of those rare, once in a blue moon builds that I'll probably never do again. Not just due to unwillingness to do it again, but because there's some really old discontinued stuff going on in here. So let's take a look. Homie gave me his like 10 plus year old TM AEP MP7 that had the original Bingo fusion engine kit that they made for these MP7s. Now, you can get Bingo HPA conversion kits for this gun nowadays, except it's going to be a Polar Star jack in a 3D printed chassis. Prior to the jack coming out, we had the fusion engine. So this fusion engine was heavily modified by Bingo to fit in one of these. I don't think you can even get them anymore. Bingo doesn't even really make these kits. Airsoft Junkies makes them now. So very rare. He wanted me to take this engine, put it in this brand new TM MP7 because this one's old and you got that classic Tokyo Marui ABS creaking plastic going on. This one is definitely not at that point yet. It might be in 10 years. So let's just talk about the stuff I had to do to it and all the extra little things that were kind of added to make this a really modular HPA SMG. So first off, the engine, again, very old, went in there, put it in the sonic cleaner, changed all the O-rings, inspected all the electronics, made sure it was functioning, had to fix one of the FCU cables. That's all done. Then, took the old hop-up barrel assembly, cleaned out the inner barrel that was in there. It's some indescript steel barrel, changed the bucking to a new Firefly bucking, modified the arm to put an M-nub on it, because it actually works really well with this bucking. It's hopping 4 O's like a dream. And then he wanted a gas stock. So I went ahead and after a lot of design and iterations and test prints, we finally have a stock adapter that allows you to mount on a real spec Polar Star UGS. Now, the big challenge with this was making it compact. So there were some changes I had to do to the engine. There's some modifications I had to make to the actual UGS. Right now, as it stands, it is as compact as it can physically be. There's nothing else I can do to get this thing shorter without, completely redesigning the regulator. We're already using the smallest tank, and we're at the point where the shortest length of pull we can possibly get with this gas stock is just about the length of the fully extended original stock. We also, of course, have the original stock that was heavily modified. Originally, when these kits came out, the engine was modded so that a braided amped IGL would come out the bottom where the serial number plate is. In order to get the gas stock to be super compact, I had to plug that hole. I had to make another adapter for the back so that we can actually just plug in our new stocks. So let's take a look at those mods. So like I said earlier, these fusion engines were heavily modified to fit in the MP7. So all the mill work you see on the engine itself was done by Bingo like 10 years ago. Where the original line had come out from this kit, I had to make a custom plug for it using my lathe. So I was able to cut the threads onto that, and I was able to get it to be a perfect fit with the hole and threads that were there. That has a tough Teflon tape on it, and it has this thread sealant that's rated for way more PSI than is ever going to go into this engine. And then in the back, there was a plug. This is the plug. Now, this plug was put into this engine, and then it was milled while it was in there, and there was a thread sealant on it. So this was not something I can just use an Allen key to get out. It is a hex head plug, but I ended up having to drill through it, and I had to use a bit that helps you remove stripped screws. This is not brass. I don't know what it is, but it was very difficult to drill through. Fortunately, I was able to get it out without compromising the hole and the threads in the back of the engine. So I then went ahead and took a inner barrel from a Sistema Infinity kit, because it was a nice thick brass, and the inner diameter, which is already nice and polished, happens to be perfect for these Polarstar UGS fittings. Now, normally this fitting would go into the TM spec UGS. It's also present on the other stock, and this is what really allows us to plug it in. Now, when this is under pressure, the line wants to shoot out of the regulator, and this line's going to want to shoot out of the back of the engine. So this stock, everything is held on because these body pins hold it all together, and it maintains an air seal. And I'm very glad that it worked. This was one of those questionable things that was done, where talking to the customer, I was like, there's a chance this might not work. This is kind of sketchy, but fortunately it came out very nice. We used the same Teflon tape and thread sealant. I actually had to hand tap these threads because I could not get that thread pitch on my lathe. I used the calculator online and looked at my change gears, and I just couldn't cut it. So I ended up doing that by hand, and then afterwards I switched it around, used my lathe like a mill, ended up fixing this brass adapter onto the tool post, and I put a Dremel like mill bit in the spindle of the lathe. And then I was able to kind of set the height, and I was able to cut these flat slots onto here so that I could use a little wrench to actually get it on there. The FCU had to be replaced because this is a really old FCU that was in here. This is what the old FCUs look like, and the settings are not the same as all the new FCU settings. So this thing was just not going to cut it. The original front end on the 10-year-old MP7 had a 14 mil adapter on it with this Knights Armament can, because this is the suppressor he likes to rock on this. So we can easily just swap the front end for any occasion. I still need to kind of range test it with the can on and make sure we're not baffle striking, because there is some wobble there that I'm not a huge fan of. As far as the actual plastic front end, that is on there solid. That's not where the wobble is happening. It's happening all in between the can and the flash hider. The FCU cable was shortened and carefully tucked away in the extra space here so that we had as much room as possible to fit the FCU and the battery. The inside of the receiver had to be modified quite a bit, but what's really nice about this is he can go ahead and put on his gas stock, and when he doesn't want to use the gas stock anymore, he can remove it and he can put on his normal stock. Now, we have a 90-degree adapter here. Polarstar does make these. You can get them from them. I got these ones from Amped. We kept the mock charging handle for the aesthetic. And then a neat little feature going on here with the original stock is, because the line is now routed out the back, it's nice because it's out of the way of your hand. We can still have that serial number plate. And the stock itself was modified quite a bit so that you can actually collapse this all the way still. And you can just choose where you want your line to go, either on the left or right side. It's a little ghetto. It ended up being cheaper if we just went ahead and Dremeled what was here instead of me completely redesigning the stock. If this fails or breaks, then we'll probably go ahead in the future and do the CAD. But this is already a very hefty bill for a very complicated build. We have the Polarstar filtered fitting down here. That'll help preserve this really old engine. The customer's goal for this was that he wanted to use this as an SMG for Zulu ops that have an SMG class. Now, those first few shots being quiet, the PSI is set really low on this, on the regulator, and the dwell is set pretty low. I noticed that when I set the dwell higher, those first few shots don't kind of blip like that. We could probably use an anti-stiction setting to kind of help with that, but it's only those first few shots, and then everything's fine. And when he wants to use the gas stock, all he has to do is unplug his air, put on his gas stock. Now this gas stock is printed in carbon fiber nylon, partly due to it just having a nicer aesthetic than some other plastics. This plastic prints actually pretty easy. It's a Fiberology, I think is the pronunciation of the brand, and it's a PA12 CF15. Now I did intentionally make this a pretty snug fit because I don't want this guy being all wobbly inside the gun. Nice solid fit. Ideally you'd put the 2 screws in at this point, that'll help secure it. But in the meantime, we can put in a gas stock, or rather we can put in a tank. Now I'm not going to torque it down all the way, but if you want to shorten it a little bit more, you'd have to torque it down all the way. Now, this thing's going to run out of air very quick. These older Fusion engines are not very efficient, and this does not have all of the aftermarket parts that help make this more air efficient. So despite the PSI being set really low and the DP being set pretty low, you can still see that when we shoot full auto, you'll watch this dial decrease. This customer owns like 13 of these small tanks. So if this is something he wants to run, then he'll be all right. These regulators are going to hold some air. So you want to shoot it when it's done. Now, regarding this stock, you can't just drill the hole through the middle of one of these stocks and then be able to run a line through it. I had to completely modify these levers and incorporate these return springs so that we can still get full functionality out of these tabs and adjust our stock while also making clearance for this line. Now, same as with this line adapter, we still have a similar problem when there's pressure in this line. This guy wants to shoot out of the engine. So this 3D printed spacer was made to basically allow this line adapter to not be able to go backwards any more than this. And this is set to the perfect distance so that when this is actually installed onto the gun, it's completely inside of the engine. And then this little spacer here was put so that when we take the stock off, this guy can't go forward anymore because that can make it a little bit difficult to get it back on. I gotta say, despite all the effort put into doing the gas stock, I see this customer using this gun with the tank and line more often than not. But I'll say that overall, the performance of the gun is actually really good. Shoots great with 2 5s, 3 2s, 4 0s. So whatever BB weight he's choosing to run, he's going to have really good accuracy and range. I was actually surprised at how well it was shooting. I was concerned that my modifications to the engine might hinder the performance in some way. And fortunately, it really didn't. And I mean, this guy is just good to go. Let's shoot it with the suppressor on it. I know there's some foam in here. I'm not a big fan of foam because foam tends to be a baffle strike hazard most of the time. There's no such thing as a TM AEP MP7 that's HPA that doesn't have some finicky little aspects to it. I've done builds like this before, but not with the really old Fusion engine kit, and I most certainly have never put a gas stock on one of these. So this was just a very unique build. I'm glad that it's finally over and I can move on to the other guns in my queue, but this one was definitely above average as far as how much time had to go into it. So I'd be remiss if I didn't, make a little video showing it off. I'm just very relieved that it's done and it shoots great. And it's a beautiful thing. All right, that's all I got. Good night, God bless, and I'm out.